So I am super pumped for this podcast with Jen. Hopefully you are as well. If you care anything about fitness, mental well-being, or entrepreneurship, you're going to want to listen to this because that's all the stuff we talk to. We talk about her Pilates business. We talk about her mental well-being and that struggle that she had with it. We talk about some of our favorite failures, as well as the new endeavor that she's going to be entering here for all you fitness business owners who are looking to, well, you'll find out later on. We're going to be talking about that. So please stay tuned. Let me know what you think at the end. Alrighty, guys, we are here with Jen Derose, not Derosic. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thanks. Yeah, Derosic is the way I kindly tell my husband that I am married to him with our combined names. So,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about who you are, what you do, kind of just tell the people listening or watching
Sure.
your backstory.
I was born in Erie, Pennsylvania,
Okay.
and was raised here, went to school, the normal St. George, Mercier's Prep. And then decided to leave, fly the nest, and went to Boston University and the University of Toronto. Basically, I thought I was going to be a business mogul.
Okay.
I was an economics and French major. I figured I was going to have a corporate job. And then somewhere in that mix of those 4 years or so, I decided maybe there's something else. And in Toronto, where I was going to school, there was the headquarters to Stott Pilates, which is a worldwide headquarters, very well-known company. And so my last year of school, I decided to also do my Pilates certification, much to the chagrin of my parents, but they did support me, and I was given a job without even finishing my certification, and it started me on my career path. So
Wow, that's
yeah,
awesome.
no regrets.
Now, kind of like what got you interested? Have you always been interested in Pilates and thought
Yeah.
it'd be fun to teach it, or?
Sure. So I've always been active. I played sports and was very athletic as a youngster. And Pilates was new in Toronto at the time. And so I had taken it just in a class, and I thought, hey, this is a cool thing. It's offered here. It can travel with me. It was just seemed something that I could be definitely interested in, and so I went that direction.
Gotcha. Now, was it a immediate like, oh, you got into it and you're like, I want to make a business around this, or was it just you just started as like a hobby?
It was
and grew
mostly
from
a
there?
hobby. Yeah,
Okay.
mostly a hobby. I didn't set out with it being a career choice. I worked for another studio while I was up there, and I came home basically because I knew it was time to come home. I had broken up with a boyfriend, I had been on visas for enough years, and it was time to make a choice. Do I stay permanently, or do I come back to the U.S.? And I did. And I was going to stop in Erie for a month or two just to, reset. And I got sucked in because no one was doing Pilates here. It was very, very unknown. So I started to teach just a couple of classes to test the waters, and within a couple of months I had a studio, a brick and mortar. So
That's really cool. Now,
yeah.
what is that like to start something that has no footprint in Erie at all? Because I feel like a lot of businesses are going through that, like, oh, the bubble tea place. There's no such thing as bubble tea, really. I mean, there were a few places that sold it, but it wasn't as prominent as it could be. What is that like, foraging like a path?
Well, I mean, I think part of it, I was so young that I didn't have any fear at all and a ton of passion. So, when you're 22, you're not looking at the what ifs and things like that. It was an easy business to begin because I didn't need a lot of overhead. So, I went through the SBA and got my loan and got myself started. But I think it was, Oprah has a quote, success being a combination of luck and opportunity and hard work. And I believe all of those things were the case in my, with my business. I was right at the base of the wave before it went up with the trend of Pilates, and I'm a really hard worker. So that, and I knew a lot of people in Erie, which was helpful.
Okay, so you already had that kind of network.
Kind of. I mean, I hadn't been here in a while, but Erie is a wonderful place. Once you get a certain amount of people who are really into what you're doing, they will tell others. It's definitely a referral city, that's for sure. And I've benefited from that still. It's 18 years later, and I'm still getting referrals from my clients. So that's great. Yeah.
And I mean, from what I've been doing, like research on your business online, it's like kind of like grown out of just Erie. Like, you're pretty well known in the Pilates scene in itself,
Right.
and like the business itself has grown. How long and how hard of a process was that, or did it seem like just with your hard work and your like passion for it, it just kind of Pilates just something that came easy to you?
The business?
Yeah, the business side of it.
I mean, I think I always look at business as, if you think of how a human grows, they start as an infant, then they become a child, then they become an adolescent, and then they come into their mature years. I definitely had all of those stages. I think what's been most important is I kept myself very aware of what else was going on within my industry, but also what else was going on in the media, right? So I got into social media quickly, which helps with, people outside of Erie knowing you, and you can really build a nice online business that way.
For sure. Now, do you have any online presence with your business, or is it mainly just clients in the studio?
Do we have classes online, things like that?
Yeah, like do you have a way to like profit from people outside of Erie getting your content, or how does that structure work?
It's sort of where we wanted to go. We made the decision not to do classes and things like that, but we do definitely help other instructors along the way. So we're focused more on that than anything else.
Okay, gotcha. So now, how many people do you have working at the studio? I think it was like 4 or 5. I thought I counted online.
There's now 8.
8.
There's now 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what does that process look like of like finding instructors that you think are going to carry the brand of your business?
It's super challenging.
Yeah.
So as equal, as great as Erie is with the referral system, finding qualified instructors has been a huge problem, to the point where I now train everybody myself. I have found that if you can find the right person and they have somewhat of a passion or a background in anatomy and those types of things, that's the best way to go. It takes some time, though. It takes anywhere between like 6 months to a year of training, a lot, for someone to even get started in teaching Pilates in the method that we teach.
Okay.
So there's different methods, there's different certification processes, and there's also studios that don't have equipment, and we have all of the apparatus, which takes even more time to learn.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I've seen the social media. It's like every time you post something, it's like a new machine. I'm like, what does that do?
Yeah, and my focus has been growing the team the past couple of years, just so that I can sort of back off a little bit. I used to teach 40 hours a week on top of running the business, which was just too much. And so it's been, it's been a challenge. I'm not used to managing that many people. But it seems to be going well.
Now, do you find it almost being bittersweet not having the ability to teach so much, or does it feel better that you have time for other things?
I go back and forth on that for sure. I mean, it definitely feels good to not be in the studio every day. So I'm able to work from home. I was able to have my son home this summer. He's 9. I've never been able to have a summer with him. So
that's really cool.
Yeah, we've been able to spend quite a bit more time together. But, I'm still teaching 12 hours a week, and I can always pull myself back in a little bit if I feel like I'm missing it. But
gotcha.
Yeah, it's been good.
I mean, and what I really want to talk about also is the mental health side of things, and we'll get into that a little bit. But I think that your hard work, like you were talking about hustle, really did help you in the beginning to really establish yourself. But what do you think one of the main reasons for the success of your business is today? If you could attribute it to like 1 or 2 things.
I think consistent quality and good customer service.
Okay.
And that can be said for any business. You could be selling the most amazing product, but if those things aren't there, consistency and treating your people well and your staff well, then you're not going to have a business for very long. And
I mean, I was just talking to a lady the other day talking about how important it is to inspire and keep your staff mindset ready and goal mission focused, because they're a direct reflection of who you are to your customer.
Yep.
And that's the only way to keep that referral going, keep the comments, because I was going on your Facebook and it's like everything is like 5-star comment reviews and it's just amazing how you're able to, forget what it was, like 4.9 stars on Facebook, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But you'd say it's that quality.
I think so. We're all very different personality wise, and even though we all have the same training, the quality is there consistently. We are there for our clients. We don't take off very often. And if we do, we make sure that they're covered. Because, Pilates and exercise is one of those things that you don't want to take a month off of. You want to make sure that you've got your class every week.
Exactly. People have routines. They have systems. How about you? Do you have any morning routines that you like to go through, or?
I mean, I do. I am always up and at work an hour before the studio opens. And so people think that's crazy because sometimes I'm at the studio at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. Yes. So I'm the morning teacher. It's important to me to be in the quiet, set my day, feel like I get in there and I know what needs to be done by my admin. Other than that, my morning routine is coffee and no talking.
No talking.
No talking and coffee.
Now, whenever you get thrown off your routine, do you ever see like a drastic change in productivity in a day?
Me?
Yeah.
I very rarely get thrown off my routine.
Okay.
Yeah, I do keep very consistent days.
That's really...
it's helpful when you have clients because you are blocked and booked. But one of the best things I do is I block everything in my calendar. So I block date night in my calendar. Block all of my meetings so that I am more productive. And I know that if I have an hour off, what can I do within that hour? I'm always, putting the puzzle pieces together as best I can.
That's something I definitely should probably take away from this podcast.
Yeah, I think terrible. Most people, if they ran their lives like they would think of running their business, they'd do better with their relationships and everything else.
Exactly. And having that symmetry between personal life and business life is really important to the success for entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Now, before we get into that section, which I really do want to talk about, on the reverse side of what do you think is making your business successful, what do you think the one area that you probably struggle with the most with running a business?
Oh, that's a good one. I think there's probably a lot of things I could improve upon, but me personally, I struggle with managing staff and because I tend to be a do type of person, and I expect everybody's going to kind of be that same way, and they're not. So I'm learning that process. And other than that, I hate doing my accounting. So I have farmed that off 100%. There's things you just don't like. And entrepreneurs have to wear so many hats. It's hard for us to realize at some point we need to take a couple of those hats off and let somebody else, be in charge.
And I feel like that also just helps with the success of your business because you're able to do the things that you're actually good at.
Yeah.
Like instead of spending like 10 hours on an accounting project for a week that would take a professional like 4 hours.
Exactly.
Like it just seems, why wouldn't you want that difference in
I think we just struggle with giving up control.
That's true.
I think most entrepreneurs start with a lot of control, and it's difficult to give it away and open up your books and open up your life. So
and just let other people take control.
Yeah.
Now, you personally, in your story that you were talking to at the event I heard you speak at, you talked a lot about how mental health was a problem for you in the early stages. Can you talk about a little bit of like that time of your life?
Sure. It wasn't the beginning. It was just a few years ago.
Oh, really?
Yes. So I think I was good with the hustle for a long time, other than not having balance. Maybe, at the beginning I had no social life. Okay. But my mental health was still okay. I was somehow dealing with it. I felt fine. I was getting enough good juju from my work that it wasn't necessary. But as I got through the past couple of years, I would say the past 3 or 4 years, it's been a real struggle for me. Life comes at you pretty quickly. And I had a couple of, one of the things was my mom passed away, and I was her caretaker for the year prior when she was ill. And you hustle your way through all of that as well. And the huge wake-up call was the day, I was at the gym and the exercise felt bad. My body just wasn't responding to anything. I was needing to pull over and take a nap in my car. And it just progressively got worse because I wasn't stopping the hustle. But eventually, my body just stopped me. So my physical and mental health were completely kaput. So if you don't think about that balance, eventually it'll come back to get you.
So you said this is about a couple years ago that you like really started working on this. How long had you been going through this unhealthy state to get to that point?
Probably my whole life.
Really? Okay.
I would say. I've always been a high achiever, overachiever, perfectionist. Always had to do the best. I think that's just the way I was raised, which is good and bad. But definitely in my business, it gained momentum. Definitely gained momentum because at the beginning stages of your business, you're still thinking about it more as a passion and less of, an income producer. And then you hit a time when you have children and a family and you want to save and you have college to save for. it changes you a little bit. You got to work harder. You got to make more money, that kind of thing. So
what do you think are some warning signs that you probably should have picked up on, saying that you were headed down this path of...
The warning signs for me were definitely just withdrawing from relationships, mentally, not wanting to talk to my husband as often. Physically, really, my biggest thing was physical. So so my health went downhill. As I said, I'm a physical person. I've always worked out, and I started to gain weight and lose my muscle tissue just because. And in the end, it was because of hormonal imbalances, adrenal fatigue, all of the great things that happen if you run yourself into the ground.
Now, I mean, something I've always struggled with my business, and I've talked to other people, is like you feel like you can't stop sometimes when you're running a business or starting a business, or even if you have a successful one and you have employees and you don't want to let people down, you got to make payroll. I mean, how hard is that struggle, and what are some things that you can try and actively do to like lessen that need?
Well, I mean, I'm 2 years into pulling back.
Okay.
So I went from, it's taken me 2 years to feel okay with disappointing clients, and also disappointing the staff. They've come to expect that I'm going to be there like 50 hours a week. And when you're not, sometimes they think, well, she must be, what's going on with Jen? You know, she must not care anymore. But, you know, over 2 years, I just slowly collapsed my schedule. You know, I went from 40 teaching hours. Now I'm down, like I said, to 12. I just think it needed to be a process, and it probably needs to be a process for most entrepreneurs, because if I went from 40 to 18, I would, without growing the team in between, I wouldn't have a business. So I knew that there was going to be times where I had to work a little bit harder to get to where I am today.
And do you think that mental illness, depression, thoughts of suicide, do you think that's more prevalent in entrepreneurs than it is most people?
I think it's a dirty secret. Yes. Okay. Yeah. I think other than just being overachievers, I think we're people pleasers. And I think that we take to heart what maybe a customer thinks or your staff thinks, maybe more than others. Entrepreneurs, you might not think this, but I think most of them are empathetic, or they're empaths. So they sort of are able to read people very well. And sometimes that's great for your business. And sometimes you feel everything that they're feeling. So yeah, I just think that we work ourselves so hard, and we try to achieve so many things that when we get out of whack, you know, that's when the depression sets in, and it's hard to get yourself out of it.
Yeah, I forget what I was reading, but it was just recently in preparation for this, but it's like 1 in 3 entrepreneurs struggle with depression. Yeah. And I mean, when you think about that, how many entrepreneurs or people that say they're entrepreneurs, and then even taking that statistic, how many people are afraid to say that they're struggling with depression?
Oh, I think, like I said, it's a dirty secret. It really is. But we keep a lot of hours. We don't sleep as well as we should. A lot of them don't take care of themselves, you know, physically. It just, it's amazing. It's a huge statistic. I am happy to say, though, recently I've noticed more and more entrepreneurs, even high-level entrepreneurs, coming out to talk about it, which is very, very important.
That is important. And what do you think the things are that need to happen to help that conversation be more common?
I just think just being able to share, you know, the more people that have the confidence to share, the more people will be more open to share. You know, there's a stigma on mental illness anyways. And so this entrepreneurial community is seen as successful and strong and unbreakable, and yet we're suffering behind the scenes, most of us.
And how has your journey through all of this redetermined what success looks like in your mind and business and personal life?
Right. So I was lucky to be part of the Athena Powerlink program a couple of years ago. And one of the exercises they made me do was list all of the goals I had in my life, and then all of the things I wanted to do within my business. So business goals, personal goals. And what I realized was 90% of the business goals weren't going to get me anywhere near my personal goals. And so it was a total mind shift to what did I need to do within the business to get me to where I'm the most happiest, or where I am the happiest.
And what would you say some of those personal goals are that you have?
For me, it's travel at the top of the list. I have been to almost every continent. And I feel so stuck, you know, and I had been stuck for years not traveling, and I still have a hard time, you know, taking the time off. But that was huge. And also just security, just what do I need to do to feel secure? What am I not doing, that could help me feel more secure?
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I know for me, because I keep wanting to try and build the business that I'm trying to work around is like tailoring, men's image consulting. And yeah, when you get clients booked up, you feel like you can't take that time off. You can't like take some time away from the business to be able to do your own personal things, because at that point, like, you're not growing your business.
Right.
And I think a lot of a mindset can be is like, if you're not moving forward, you're going backwards.
Yeah.
So when you're working on yourself, your business is going backwards, but when you're working on your business, yourself is going backwards.
Yeah.
Do you look at those as two parallels, or do you think you can work on the business and self without either of them?
I don't think any of us are really good at it, but it's
Okay.
something that we need to be aware of, and so I always think to myself, we talked about the wellness wheel, we'll talk about that as well, but just which part or aspect of my life is lacking, and I do think that there's going to be times where you have to be more business oriented, but there's also times where you have to be more family oriented. It's a balancing act consistently. You're never going to be perfectly aligned ever. I don't believe you can ever be perfectly aligned. No.
Well, there you have it, guys. You cannot be perfectly aligned. Well, how can you gauge where you are at aligned wise? Like how close you are on a daily basis?
Should I talk about the wellness wheel a little bit?
Yeah,
It's just,
go for it.
There's something called the wellness wheel that I like to use as a tool, and it just breaks down wellness into eight aspects. And you can break it down differently depending on what you want within your pie pieces. But you sort of rank yourself within all of those areas. So one might be my physical health, one might be my spiritual health, one might be my financial health or my relationships. And if you're doing that regularly, you're going to see, holy cow, I'm at like a 10% in my financial, but look at my business, So it's just, I think it just takes moments to stop and reflect. I know a lot of people journal. I'm not a journaler.
Yeah,
I'm more of an analytical, I want to look at data, that kind of thing. So that tool really is great to show you visually, man, I'm really lacking in one area.
What you're doing.
Yeah.
Now, do you ever have a hard time like being honest with yourself on the wheel? Because like I feel like I could sometimes might just be like, I'm just going to give myself a good score on all of them just so that I don't feel bad about myself.
No, I'm pretty honest with myself.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm 40 years old. I think I've gotten over that.
Not that. And I mean, yeah, I guess if you're doing it privately for your own good, and if you're at that point where you're looking for something to help you, you would want to do the things that are actually going to be.
It's something you're putting effort into, then you're not going to want to lie to yourself.
Exactly. There's a few questions here.
Sure.
Let me just see if I can... Okay, so do you think that there are certain types of people that, because of their history with mental illness in their family or just being more susceptible to it, that they shouldn't start their own business? Do you think at all that's a concern, or that they should put the things in place beforehand?
I think it depends on, I mean, your mental illness could arrive at any time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So even if you know genetically that your mom is mental, has had depression, blah, blah, blah. And even if you don't need to be treated, it could happen at any point. So it's hard to say. I think anyone can open a business as long as they have some of the traits that are necessary, the hard work thing, the passion, the drive, the ability to read people and know, be able to please people, things like that. But I do think that most people would benefit from an analysis of themselves, go and see somebody, if you're not sure.
Now, do you ever look into like things like meditation? That's like a really big thing now. People do like just prayer, devotion, stuff like that. Is that something that you're into, that you've...
So I'm not.
Okay. Why is that?
It's just not that's not my type of mental health.
Okay.
I guess I should say I choose exercise.
Gotcha.
So, which was one of the challenges when my body decided to not be
for sure
responding. So for me, running is my therapist, other than my therapist. So where someone might meditate, I'd rather be on a treadmill.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And you kind of find like that's just a very peaceful place for you.
Yeah, and I've gotten back into running finally, and it's really helped with my mental.
What was that feeling like when you felt like exercise wasn't doing it for you?
Oh, super frustrating. Especially I've always been in control of that aspect of my life. That's one thing. You can put the food in your mouth, you can move your body, you're usually in control. And so when your body says, it was very frustrating. I was very angry. Probably, I'll use the word bitch, bitchy, you know what I mean? Probably was a miserable person to be around.
Now, did you kind of understand like why that could be because of how you've been working yourself, or were you still kind of stubborn to the fact of like, I don't know why this is happening, but just kind of push through it?
I was pretty stubborn.
Okay.
And it took a while for me to finally say I actually need to go see a doctor. But it got to the point where my heart was telling me I needed to go to the doctor. I was having heart palpitations, and I was at the cardiologist, the pulmonologist, being diagnosed with asthma and all these crazy things. I was like, I don't even take one pill. I don't like to take vitamins. So it was a struggle for me. And it was even a bigger struggle because when it's hormonal, there's not necessarily an answer other than taking the time for yourself, rest.
Yeah.
Changing your schedule, physiological changes were necessary.
Now, do you remember the time when it did switch in your mind? Like, this is what I need to do? Like, can you remember that
funny.
time, or is it?
So, I did that talk just a few months back, and I was not at the deepest, darkest place, but I still wasn't where I wanted to be.
Okay.
And so I'm happy to say probably the last couple of months, and maybe it's because I've been able to be around my son. So my relationship cup is filled, and I'm able to exercise again. So now I'm finally feeling a lot better about it, and finding them healthier.
And earlier in the talk, and also in the talk that you told at the Excel Area event, you were talking about your parents. They did support you with your business, but it was kind of like, was it rocky, or was it always like, oh yeah, you should do it?
They didn't know what it was. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So
it was new to them.
It was new to them. And so the rockiest point was when I told them I wanted to get certified, because I just had 2 degrees. They spent a lot of money on college. But when I came home, they were supportive, and they could have given me the money to start the business, but they didn't. And they made me go through the process of getting my own, like I said, the SBA loan process, because I had no credit. I'd never had a credit card, never had a car payment. And so here I am at 22 wanting to open up a business with nothing to show. But they decided, no, you're going to do this on your own. And I did. And I think they're proud of me. It took probably a couple of years for them to see that this wasn't just a fad, because I think a lot of people thought it was a fad at the beginning.
For sure.
But yeah, they're very supportive.
And it's hard to now argue with the success that you're at now. Like, how could you be disappointed when you see someone doing so well? But how do you think it would have changed your business, or just yourself in general, if you didn't have that support in the beginning? Do you think you would have not went into what you were doing today?
That's hard to say, because my family has always been supportive.
Okay.
So how do I know that perspective?
Gotcha.
Yeah. I mean, they had high expectations, very high, but they were also supportive. They let me make those choices, the choices I wanted to make, whether it be traveling or, choices on degrees and things like that.
For sure. So you don't know it's almost like you don't know what it would have been like.
I don't. And my family, I come from a family of business owners too. So they have all we're all cut from the same cloth. My stepfather is a grape farmer, and my family owned the Coca-Cola company here in Erie for years. Wow. So yeah, I was a product of hard work.
So they probably it might have been a little rocky, but they kind of probably understood. Totally. Okay, this is natural. She got the genes.
Yeah, she can work hard. She's learned.
So kind of going back a little bit to the business side of things.
Sure.
So you're saying they didn't give you any money, you had no credit. What were those early days like trying to get it up and running? Because obviously there wasn't a lot of overhead. You were able to teach people, but what were those early days like for you?
I was lucky. I like I said, I was super lucky to have the demand immediately. Like I said, before I opened the actual doors, I probably had a good steady 12 clients.
Oh, wow.
Right. So, okay. I mean, I had been testing the water, seeing them in their homes, and I knew they'd be excited to have a studio with equipment and all of this. It's a bit of a blur, though. I mean, that process, I had never done anything like that before. I had some really fantastic female bankers helping me, and the Gannon SBDC was also a great resource. I really just listened and followed directions, and got the money, and then I really didn't even look at my bank account. I just kept working. Do you know what I mean? I just I didn't spend a lot of money on the outside. I was staying at home, and it just slowly built. And I had a wait list within a month or two. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's really impressive.
Yeah.
Now, how many clients do you guys work with now?
Yeah. Everybody asks me that, and I don't count.
Oh, really?
Just like I didn't look at my bank account when I was young. I look at it as how many hours are we teaching in a week, basically, because I look at it as, this is so-and-so schedule. This is how many hours she has. But we teach anything from one-on-one to semi-privates to small groups of 6. My guess is we're probably between 200 and 300. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how long are you guys usually, like when do you open and when do you close?
Most days we're open at 6 or 7 in the morning and we close at 8.
Okay. So you're getting some good
and Saturday
people
mornings.
through there.
Yeah. I mean, we have dead hours, and like Tuesday mornings we're not open and Wednesday afternoons we're not, but it's all changes depending on which instructors I have at the time and what they're able to teach.
And also, I just want to, just out of my own curiosity, kind of just talk about Pilates a little bit, because excuse me, I really enjoy exercising, working out, but like I didn't really know what Pilates was. Kind of like, what are the benefits of Pilates? What's the difference from different like other type of aerobic exercises, if that's what it is?
It's not aerobic.
Okay.
And it's not a weight loss thing, even though you will lose inches. Sorry.
Obviously, it's working out. You're gonna see some effect.
People like to say it's yoga and Pilates are the same, but they're actually complete complements.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense? So yoga might be static stretching, and yoga has a bunch of different varieties as well. Yes. So I don't want to lump them all into one. I'm not going to be ignorant of that, but Pilates is based on fluid movement as well as resistance. So we have, like I said, spring tension, different types of machines. We base everything on your posture first and then the strength after. So the thought and the basis of Pilates is if your spine isn't right, the rest of you isn't going to be right because you need your alignment. Really? Yes. So it's about, some people are like, oh, it's for your abs. Well, it is, but it's about rebalancing things. Why is your back hurt? Because it's super tight and your abs are weak. You know what I mean? So we sort of address things that way. The same with joint stability. So we do a lot of work on stabilization of your scapula, stabilization of your hips and pelvis. And then if you see a really advanced Pilates class, whether it's on equipment or not, it's almost dance-like.
Really?
Yeah, it's really a beautiful thing. So
no, that would be, I think that'd be a lot of fun to try, because as soon as you said posture, I was like, that's something that always like I'm always so self-conscious about.
You should.
Is my back straight? Am I sitting upright? Because I don't want to get a curve in my back when I get older.
Yeah, and I think traditionally people thought Pilates was for girls.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
And Joseph Pilates was a man. You know what I mean? The guy, they invented it for rehabilitation of soldiers. And then the reason I think that people think it's for girls is because the dance world adopted it first. So because it was something dancers could do to rehab and stay strong, but not bulk up. So now we have lots of men in the studio.
No, I'm definitely
lots of guys. We have all men's classes, meaning it's just men. Yeah.
Do you have men instructors yet?
No, not now. I've always wanted to have a few. I think it's great.
Yeah, I think that'd be really cool, because I think it'd be something fun just to add to what I'm already doing.
Absolutely.
Because having those, and I think it also mirrors perfectly into just having balance.
Absolutely.
Is like, and that might be why you're like on this path that you're on, because you're already in this field that's all about balance and everything's being correct and stabilizing itself. But no, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Now we do want to talk about kind of your new endeavor, what you're going to be doing.
Right.
You want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Because I have all this extra time on my hands, I decided that I needed to figure out why, like what purpose do I have at this point? Of course I still enjoy the studio, but I think I'm 18 years in at the studio and I've been teaching it for over 20. So, most people don't stay in careers that long anymore at all.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, what are my strengths? What do I enjoy doing? And I've spent a good portion of the past 2 years trying to determine what it is. And so I've started working with other fitness studios, boutique studios, whether it be yoga, Pilates, just strength training studios, on how to be profitable, but also enjoy your life. Mm-hmm. Because there's a lot that you learn in certification, but they don't teach you any part of the business. So it's a little bit about teaching the business sense, and a little bit about, well, now that you're profitable, you know what I mean, at this stage, you have no life. Let's figure out how to find the balance here.
Now, do you want this to be something that becomes more of your full-time thing, or are you kind of hoping to straddle both as you go forward?
Eventually, potentially more of a full-time thing.
Okay.
Because what did I say my biggest goal in life is?
What was your biggest goal?
Travel.
To travel. And,
yeah, so I'm hopeful that I'll find a business or build a business to the point where I can pretty much be working with my clients anywhere.
Okay. Yeah, and then you could be able to work with different boutiques all over the world.
Absolutely.
Now, how long have you been starting this? How has it been going?
Yeah, so I have had a couple of case studies.
Okay.
Some are from afar, which is one of the main reasons that I'm so big on my social media. You know,
Okay.
I'm just adamant about making sure that there's a presence.
And this is your Inner Balance?
My Inner Balance,
Okay,
yeah.
Pilates.
Yeah, I've sort of started to do too, but man, who has the time?
It is.
Who has the time? And I haven't given up control of my social media yet. I think it's a very personal thing, and you know when it's not the person doing it.
And I think you're also someone who's good at it, so
Yeah.
it's not like you're one of those people that like are really bad at social media and you should pawn it off.
Yeah.
Like, you do a good job, so why wouldn't you want it to be as authentic as possible?
And it's fun. It's creative. It uses my other side, the other side of my brain. What were we talking about?
We were talking about
Oh, yeah.
you wanting to make this
Is
more
it
of a full-time.
I'm gonna, I worked with a coach for the past year as well. She's in Vancouver, and one of the first things she said to me is, you can choose. And you don't have to know. Like,
Okay.
you have time. And she said, shelve some things, and try to figure things out. And I'm going to kind of let this go organically and figure out, do I want to do this full time, or do I want 3 clients a year?
Okay. Got it. I mean,
I don't know yet.
That kind of seems like, you could either be doing huge talks at yoga conferences or
Mhm.
fitness conferences, or you could just have a private master class that you bring people in.
Right.
Kind of.
Right.
Now, if there's somebody who is interested in that, how would they reach out? Just through Inner Balance
Pretty
Pilates?
much.
Okay.
Yeah. I do have a link on my website as well as my social media for the coaching.
Okay.
Yeah.
Website and social media.
Yeah.
for
So
coaching.
ibpilates.com or Inner Balance Pilates on Instagram.
Okay, and that's just the same way also they can get in touch if they
For
want to do
Pilates.
anything for
Absolutely.
Pilates.
Yeah. So there's a page for it all.
Awesome. Well, I mean, I think this conversation has been amazing.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to ask you, because I do ask everybody this, and I
Sure.
think it's very fitting for this, is about getting rid of the stigma of failure in entrepreneurship
Mhm.
culture and whatnot. So I'd like to ask people, what would you say is your favorite failure that you've had in your career, or even in personal life,
Oh boy.
that turned out to be
Well, I guess for me, my biggest failure was my first marriage.
okay?
Okay. And so it taught me a lot about everything. It changed everything for me at work. It changed everything for me in my personal life. I had a little boy. So for me, that's probably the biggest failure
Okay.
of my life.
Now, which one do you think taught you the most that turned out not to be a failure? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it wasn't a failure, but I don't
Okay.
feel like it was a
Okay.
failure.
Gotcha.
So I guess
Okay.
that's my point is, it taught me a lot, and I moved forward stronger
Gotcha.
and more resilient. And I realized that it's okay, again, not to be perfect, and everybody struggles. So
Yeah.
it was definitely a positive impact.
And just out of curiosity, how long ago was that compared to when you're starting to go through this?
Years prior. So my
Okay.
son is 9, so we
Okay.
divorced when I was about 9 years ago.
Gotcha. I was
Yeah.
just trying to put the timeline together.
Yeah,
for-
it's so funny. Again, failure is not a bad thing, and I wish one of the things I wish schools would do was teach kids about failure. And I've done a TEDx talk in the past, and I wanted to do another one about talking about it's okay to fail and
that'd
talking
be
about
good.
failure. You should be asking your kids, what'd you fail at today? Not just what did you win at. And it's amazing how that stigma would be taken away.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
for sure. And that's kind of that's why I try to ask everybody, is because I think that's a big reason why people are afraid to talk
They
about
won't even try because they're afraid to fail.
Exactly. So, I mean, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I mean, thank you for being here.
Sure.
And we'll definitely have people get in touch with you for all these things that you need.
All right. Thank you.
Alrighty, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Bye. Another podcast done for Aspiring for More, guys. This one with Jen. Like all of them, they're great. But this one, what I really took away is that men can do Pilates. So that is what I'm going to be doing in the future. And other guys, I recommend you also do Pilates because it sounds really cool. Also, if you would like to reach out to Jen for any of the stuff that she was talking about today, whether it be the Pilates, whether it be the new business she's doing for fitness coaches and businesses, where she's going to be teaching you how to be successful, but also enjoy your life and not drain it away, kind of like we were talking about the whole mental wellness thing. So you can hit her up on Instagram at Inner Balance Pilates, yes, and Facebook as well. You can also reach out to her on her .com, which is ibpilates.com. Guys, reaching out to Jen, you're not going to regret it. She's an amazing person, just all around. Getting to know her the past few months since I met her at the speaking Excel Erie has been amazing. Awesome person to reach out to, so I highly recommend it. And also, like all amazing podcasters do, so I'm going to follow in their footsteps. If you enjoyed this podcast, please rate it on wherever you're listening to, iTunes, Google, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify. Might not be on SoundCloud. Scratch that. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube, give us a big thumbs up, comment, whatever you need to do to let people know that we're out here and we're doing these podcasts, because I want to be able to grow this so that Erie entrepreneurs have a place to learn from other Erie entrepreneurs and maybe grow this globally, nationally, whatever we do. But thank you guys for listening and have a great day.